Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome. So I'm just going to give just a few more seconds to see if we have any other viewers joining us this evening. So please bear with me. Okay, perfect. I'm Charlotte Gerard. I am from the University of Suffolk and I work as a student recruitment officer. So, welcome to this evening's discussion on student finance and all things kind of budgeting and understanding kind of the next steps in terms of getting towards university and the financial side of that kind of situation. I have with me this evening Faraz, one of our student ambassadors. So he will also be touching on some fantastic kind of information that he can share about his financial experience at university and his budgeting tips as well. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with a few little statistics on our lovely University of Suffolk. So we've got some really great information on here. One that I'd really like to point out is that we are third in the UK for our spend on academic services. So we're going to be talking about finance tonight, and just so you guys know, we have the kind of financial and academic spends for your students and your parents, carers, your families. At the heart of what we do, we put a lot of money into making sure you guys are super supported if you come to the University of Suffolk. So a little bit about where we are based. We are based in Ipswich on the lovely waterfront. So it's the image just behind this map here. We're about an hour's commute into London by direct train. So we've got some really fantastic links in and around the area as well. So this evening, what we're going to cover is a few student finance myths. We're going to try and bust those for you. We're going to talk about tuition fee loans, maintenance loans, some budgeting tips with Faraz again. We're going to talk about additional funding, and then we're going to move on to repaying those loans, applying for student finance, and the platforms that you can connect with us across the university as well. So, to start off with, here's a nice list of questions. So, it's kind of something to think about. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to answer them, but have a little read through and see if any of these you are able to answer. So hopefully by the end of this session, you will be able to answer them and confidently. And if not, you can always ask us questions at the end. So there is a comment section. Please feel free to post your comments in there, and we will address those at the end of the session. So if you take a look at any of these questions and they're still burning at the end, feel free to kind of ping those into that comment section. So we'll start off with our first Mythbuster. You need to be rich to go to university. This is a big one. So it's something that kind of springs to mind whenever we talk about university nowadays, especially with the kind of financial situation that we are in as a country. Things can be expensive, and university can be thought of as being one of those things. And some people think they need to have all the cash in their back pocket ready to go in order to go to university. And we're here to tell you that is definitely not the case, okay? So the first kind of piece of funding that you can receive as a student expecting to go to university is a tuition fee loan. So a tuition fee loan is something that is provided by Student Finance England, and this is the loan that covers the full cost of your studies at university. So this is covering every year, whether it's 3, 4, 5 years, dependent on what degree you do. This tuition fee loan will cover you to physically go to university and study the degree or course of your choice. So it covers the full cost of the course fee, which currently is £9,250 per year. This is expected to rise in August of 2025 to around £9,500. So this loan is paid straight to the university. So it goes from Student Finance England directly to the university. So as a student, this money wouldn't go into your bank account and you wouldn't need to forward this on to the university in any capacity. This money goes straight from Student Finance to the university that you are attending. So eligible applicants need to ordinarily reside in the UK or the EEA for 3 years before the start of their course in order to be eligible for this funding. There are exceptions, so we do advise you to speak to Student Finance. They're really fantastic about discussing kind of any caveats or any unsure things that you might raise with them. So please do feel free to contact Student Finance if you're not sure if you are eligible. Universities often also have financial teams that you can chat to as well. So do your research, because we're there to support you and answer any questions you might have when it comes to these loans, okay? So the other loan, which is there to support students in terms of living expense and all those additional costs that surround university other than paying to actually go, is your maintenance loan. So again, this is provided by Student Finance England. So it contributes, as I said, to living and study expenses. So we'll cover what these might be a little bit further on in the presentation. So the real nitty gritty of it is that the maintenance loan is paid to the student directly into their student bank account, whichever bank account that may be, in 3 instalments, and that is at the start of each term. So it is changing dependent on where you live and where you go to university. So we have a lovely table in the next few slides where I'll explain this in a bit more detail. But essentially, dependent on where you study at university and what your living situation is, you may be entitled to slightly more or slightly less maintenance loan. The real kind of hinging factor of this maintenance loan is that it is dependent on your household income. So as a student, that means it's your parents or carers. So any individual in the house that's earning that kind of their financial situation will be kind of dictating the amount of maintenance loan you can receive. So like I said, the kind of living expenses a student could expect to think about at university would be potentially accommodation. And I say potentially because you may decide to live at home and commute, or you may be paying for your student accommodation and potentially paying for catered accommodation or non-catered. And that's another kind of financial decision that you might need to think about. And that does move me on to food. So if you're going to be a student at university, do you need to budget and think about cooking for yourself? Are you going to be getting a lot of takeaways, things like that? You need to think about all these different things when it comes to university. Travel. So if you are going to live at home and commute to university, do you need to think about a rail card or potentially a car share if you know someone else that's heading to the university as well? Books and equipment. This is more of a caveat here. So when you are at university, all of your core readings should be available and provided for free by the university digitally and in their library. But if you do want any additional resources and study materials, then you might want to pay for those. So it could be an additional cost. Social life. So for students especially, thinking about university is not just about studies potentially, but making new friends, going out and socializing. So that might include going out for a few meals here and there or a day trip out. So there might be additional expenses there to think about. And then other essentials. So these essentials are the things that might kind of be non-negotiable for a student potentially, like going to the gym or having a gym subscription. I had one the other day where someone said they wouldn't be able to study without their Spotify subscription, so that would be included in their budgeting, which was really interesting. I hadn't thought of that one. So each individual will have kind of different priorities when it comes to what they spend their maintenance loan on, which is definitely something to consider in the whole kind of grand scheme of things. So if we're talking about the maintenance loan and how much you could be entitled to, this table's a really great indicator. So as I said, the maintenance loan is based on your household income. So if we look at this table, you can see on the left-hand side in the column, we've got household income, and then we've got kind of listed some values there. If you look across the top section of this table, you'll see that we've got home, elsewhere, and London. And this is relating to where the student is living in relation to their university. So if you're living at home, and then you're commuting to university, then the home column is where you would look to see how much maintenance loan you're entitled to. If you're living in the elsewhere column, that means that you're attending a university outside of London and you're living in student accommodation at that university. So you're not living at home. And then the London column is if you are at a university in London and you're in student accommodation there. So those are the different figures that we could expect to see. So if you're unsure of kind of your household income, and if you're a student and you're not sure kind of what you could be entitled to, this might give you a nice rough idea. There is also a student finance calculator on the government website. If you literally just type into Google student finance calculator, you'll be able to input your data. It's not used for any other reason, but it can give you more of a specific idea of what you could be entitled to your maintenance loan. So, budgeting tips, kind of rounding up from what we've discussed here. When students come to thinking about university and what they're going to spend their money on and how much maintenance loan they'll receive, there's several things to think about. So, in terms of saving those pennies, you can think about opening a student bank account, because there can be several different benefits to this. So each kind of bank might have different promotions going on for students. So you could be entitled to a discounted student rail card if you sign up to opening a new bank account with them as a student, or getting an interest-free overdraft and things like that. So there's definitely some research to be done around this before you head to university. A big one that we would encourage is to avoid using credit cards. We don't want to get into any unnecessary debt. So avoid using credit cards, avoid that overdraft, and try and spend responsibly. So another one to kind of think about, which we are going to touch on with Faraz, is estimating your expenses and trying to stick to a budget. So if you're going to kind of create any budgeting tools or anything like that, that will be super useful. Obviously, knowing how much money you're going to receive every term from your maintenance loan, and then budgeting for your expenses is going to be really smart, especially when you're at university and being more independent. We've written here a totem card for student discounts. So there's loads of online student discount sites to sign up to. So a totem card is one of them. There's also websites like Unidays and things like that. So all of these will offer online discounts for lots of different platforms. So that could include dining out, potentially buying some electrical equipment, or getting money off of things like clothes or additional resources that you might need to kind of enhance your student experience. Look out for student deals in person in the area around your university as well. So in shops, restaurants, clubs and gyms. Typically, where there's a university, the town looks after you, or the city looks after you. So as long as you've got your student card or your student ID on you, you'll be able to get some really cool deals, especially in coffee shops and local areas around the university. They really do love their students, and they will try and look after you and help you save some money where you can. So the next one is buy in bulk or secondhand. So when we're talking about buying in bulk, what I would believe this is relating to is going to be when you're cooking, or potentially if you're self-catered and you're going to be looking after yourself and cooking for yourself. Buy in bulk, so big boxes of pasta, big boxes of rice, do some bulk cooking as well, meal prep, all those things that are going to kind of help you save money, and save you some time potentially as well in and around your studies and your social life. Making meals at home, that's going to help you with saving those pennies along the way. And then part-time jobs. This is highlighted for a reason. When you are at university, having a part-time job, if possible, obviously, is a really great way to get a bit of extra income. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, a part-time job sounds a bit too much to do alongside a full-time undergraduate degree, then don't be afraid. There are lots of great options out there. So a part-time job can also be a student ambassador role. So Faraz is a student ambassador, but it's a really fantastic scheme. It has a really lovely pay. So that's not something to kind of cringe at either, but it's super flexible, so you can really fit it around your studies. You can dictate when you work, so it's definitely an option to consider, and not outside the realms of possibility when it comes to thinking about how you might additionally finance yourself at university. So now that we've talked about budgeting tips, we are going to touch on additional funding. So additional funding could be something like the Disabled Students Allowance, a childcare grant, an NHS Learning Support Fund, which is something for any student who's doing an NHS related degree, where you receive £5,000 extra a year for all the kind of additional costs that you might incur in terms of traveling or commuting to your placements and things like that. So additional funding will be different at every single university. There'll be all these general ones that you'll receive regardless, but the unique ones will be bursaries and scholarships. So these are really key. These kind of additional fundings, you never have to pay back, so you're not in debt if you apply for any of these. So you'll receive this funding and you'll apply for it, and it's a relatively simple process. So as long as you meet the requirements of a scholarship or bursary, you'll be able to apply for it and potentially receive it. So an example of something that we offer at the University of Suffolk is our Ipswich Award. So this is essentially for if you exceed your entry requirements for the degree you are applying for, you'll receive £1,000 for free from us, from the University of Suffolk, to spend on whatever you'd like. So as a student, that can be quite a nice encouragement, but every university will have different kind of bursaries and scholarships available. So do your research. Sometimes it can be hard to find, so really do be specific when you're Googling and just go University of Suffolk scholarships, and hopefully that will take you directly to where you want to go. So now that we've touched on budgeting and all things kind of finance, I'm going to pass over to Faraz, and he's going to have a little discussion with you about his experience of finance and budgeting at university.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, so I'm Faraz Gul. I'm a third-year undergraduate student at Suffolk, and I'm studying history, the history course. I'm currently also a student ambassador with 1.5 years of experience and a Unibuddy student ambassador with 1.25 years of experience. I've completed a variety of research-based jobs at the university, including research-based microplacement and research internship in the third year. And I currently live in student accommodation from Monday to Friday, which is the on-campus Athena Hall, 2 minutes walking distance from the main campus. I commute to home by car to Essex on Friday afternoon for the weekend, and then on Sunday evening, I commute back to Suffolk. So there are quite a few expenses that I consider. So first one, tuition fees. For me, I pay monthly fees throughout the year. However, this is not the case for most people. Normally, student finance pays for the fees, but I've chosen to pay my own fees in monthly payments. As for accommodation costs, these are fixed installments at different times of the year, and you'll be given reminders within a week's time that you have to pay the next installment. There's also meal planning, whether I make food at home or I go out to eat. Normally, I only eat out once a week. There's also cost of fueling my car for visits home or commuting, research materials for my course, and paying for photography permits at Suffolk Archives. For my research materials, if there's something unavailable at the university's library that I may need, I normally go to the local bookstore in Ipswich, so this is normally the Waterstones. But usually, the university has most of the resources that I require, both in paper copy and online. And for my photography permits, this is quite infrequent, and these expenses are among the smallest ones that I usually have. So this is how I budget my incomes. These statistics, these are not the real statistics that I use. Obviously, they're fake, but students can use something like this to record their finances and manage their budgeting. So I earn extra money from part-time jobs at the university, and most notably, this is the Student Ambassador Scheme. As Charlotte has said before, it's very flexible around your studies, and it's also a useful source of income. In my first year, most of the additional income that I received came from research-based jobs. So, yes, now I'm going to pass back over to Charlotte to continue. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Faraz. That was very short and sweet, but some really fantastic points there. So as a student, obviously there's going to be lots of different things for each individual student to consider. So for Faraz, obviously those specific things that he will be budgeting and financing for will be payments for his student accommodation, but then also he has made the choice to commute home and go and visit his family every weekend. So there will be budgeting obviously for the travel travel costs to and from, so fueling up his car, for example, but also there'll be car insurance and things like that to consider. Other kind of things that students might need to think about is paying for a phone bill and kind of maintaining those little everyday things that you might not necessarily consider before you become independent and potentially move away to university. So that table up there that you can see is a really cool way to kind of map out your expenses and your income, and to see at the end of each month how you're doing spend wise, especially with the maintenance loan, which does come in termly installments. Obviously, dependent on when, potentially if you were living in student accommodation, your accommodation payments were taken out of your account, it will be a really great way to kind of schedule when that payment's coming out and then what your leftover money will be for the rest of the month. So if students are able to create something like this, it should be fairly easy to do in Excel, and it's a really great way to kind of track your spend and what your entitlement is and when you're receiving this. And all these little things will just help you to be more confident in your spending at university and your financial situation throughout the year. So thank you, Faraz. That was really, really useful. If anyone does have any questions for Faraz, feel free to pop them in the comments as well, and he'll be happy to answer those at the end of the session. So we're going to move on now. So we've got a few more Mythbusters on here for you. So the first one, the bigger the loan, the higher the repayments. So the loans we're talking about are obviously your tuition fee loan and your maintenance loan. So the reason they might be bigger or smaller would be dependent on whether you are obviously studying in London potentially, but also if you are going to be spending a longer time at university. So if, for example, you choose to do a placement year or a study abroad year, you might be at university for an additional length of time to someone who's just doing a standard 3-year degree. So the bigger the loan, the higher repayments. This is not true. So I'll explain this a bit further on, but we can dispel that myth right now. The next one is you start repaying your loan as soon as you graduate. Again, this is something that is untrue. There are lots of caveats to repaying your loan and how this works. And we're going to go through these now, and I'm going to reassure you that it's not as scary as it sounds. So, repaying your loans. You begin doing this once you are earning above £25,000. So congratulations, you've graduated, you've achieved your degree, you've done your 3, 4, 5 years of study maybe, and you're feeling really fulfilled and ready to go into the working world. So once you're earning above £25,000, that is when you will begin to repay the loans that you have accrued or the debt that you've accrued over university. But don't be scared. This is not going to be a massive sum of money that is taken from your account. It's actually only 9% of any earnings over that £25,000 threshold. So the maths might not be mathsing in your head right now, but as we move on, I'll be able to touch on this further. But what's really nice about this repayment sorry, I'm getting stuck on my words, that it's deducted from your wages. So you don't even see this money leave your account. Essentially, it's taken out before you receive your payslip, before the money enters your account. So it's not something as an individual that you have to track and press a button and say, repay my loans this month. It's all done kind of automatically behind the scenes. So it's not an additional thing that you have to think about alongside working and potentially paying rent or a mortgage or whatever other wonderful things you'll be doing in the big wide world. And then what's really fantastic is it's not a lifelong debt. So it's actually written off after 40 years. So if you're unable to pay the entirety of the loan cost that you've accrued, it's written off. So you're not beholden to it for the rest of your life. Even though 40 years can seem like a long time, you'll have an illustrious career, I'm sure. So an example of how you'll pay this back and how you pay it back over that threshold amount is here. So you can see we've got another table. It's a really fantastic illustration of how this works. So we've got a gross annual income on the left-hand side and then your monthly repayments on the right. So for example, if you were earning £30,000, the amount over that £25,000 threshold is £5,000. 9% of £5,000 is 450. And if we divide that by 12, which is the 12 months of the year that you'd be kind of paying back your instalments every time you receive your payslip, then that would be £37.50 that is returning to student finance. So that's your repayment for the month, £37.50. So it's not a big scary number. Seems quite reasonable. It might be a nice dinner out for two. So it's not as scary or as daunting of a repayment as you might think. So it's really not going to affect you potentially as much as the word debt might seem to affect you. So I hope that's gone towards reassuring you that it's not as scary a process or as daunting of a process as it might sound. So another Mythbuster here for you. This is kind of just a fun one. There's not too much detail going into this one. If you move abroad, you don't need to pay back your loans. So this is something that some people kind of assume. If you leave the country, if you're lucky enough to go and have a career where you can go to the New York office or move to Australia, does it mean that your student debts are kind of frozen or you don't have to continue to repay them? Unfortunately, this is not true. So you will still be paying back your loans. So if you do move country, you'll have to inform the kind of governing body over there and the financial body over there that you'll still be making loan repayments. And then it's all kind of detailed from their end, and you continue to make those repayments as you're paid over there. So we're going to move on to when to apply for your student finance. So we've kind of touched on all the information that you need to know about it. Now we're going to talk about when you need to apply for it. So applications tend to open in late February to March. So for this year, 2025, they're actually opening mid-March. So they're not open just yet. But it can take up to 6 weeks after you apply before you get confirmation that you'll receive your student finance. So it's always best to apply for it as soon as possible. That is because things take time. Typically with student finance, you might need to send off a few documents as proof and actually mail those. So you do need to take that into account in terms of sending things off and when they arrive somewhere as well. So the sooner the better when it comes to making your application for your student finance. You can also apply up to 9 months after you start your course. So you don't need to have applied before you go to university, but it is recommended. But you can do it up to 9 months after. Obviously, it just will dictate you not receiving a maintenance loan to potentially go towards supporting your accommodation costs or things like that if you've started your course and you've not yet applied for your student kind of maintenance loan. You also don't need to have a firm offer to apply for your student finance, which is why you're able to do it from March. So yeah, you don't need to wait until you know which university you're going to. Absolutely, you can add that information at a later point, but you can start your applications once they are open. So the nitty gritty, we've got 3 kind of nicely mapped out steps here for you. So number 1 is creating a student finance account. So as a student, as the person attending university, you will have to put in your own information into Student Finance England's website, and this will just be personal information about you, nothing too kind of invasive, but things they need to know. Step 2 will be to fill in proof of identity. So your parents and carers will also have to set up an account which sits alongside your student finance account, and they'll need their national insurance number and their personal income details. So this is to gauge your household income. So that's to help towards finding out how much maintenance loan you will be entitled to. And then step 3 is submitting the evidence. So this is the thing that I said can take some time, because sometimes Student Finance England will come back to you and say, please may we have these documents relating to what you've inputted into our website. We'd like to know a bit more about XYZ finances. If you can mail those to our offices, that would be really fantastic. So those things are what takes time in the process. So it's better to do this as soon as possible in case you do need to submit any additional evidence on top of the things that you can submit online. So your details are checked against the HMRC records. So make sure everything you're putting in is correct. And then your entitlement letters are mailed to you and sent to you. So do look out for those. Obviously, they do take time, up to 6 weeks, if not more. So a caveat with this application is that you do have to reapply each year. So do be aware of this. As we said, applications open February, March time every year. So you can kind of put a little date in your diary and keep a note of when you need to just revisit the Student Finance website. And then you can input some details over again. And that's essentially just to make sure that you're receiving the full entitlement that you are entitled to. So if anything changes at home, your household income changes or circumstances change, inputting that data every year helps to make sure that you're getting the full amount that you can receive from Student Finance to help towards your studies and your living expenses. So this is kind of what it looks like when you're looking at the Student Finance government website, so registering and logging in. So these are lots of kind of bullet points on what you can use your Student Finance account to research into. So you can view your statements and letters from Student Finance. You can track your application, so you can actually see what's going on with it online as well. You can check when your payments are due. So this might be something really useful, especially when you're kind of expecting your first payment potentially, and whether you need to consider, oh, my Student Finance accommodation actually comes out a few days before I get my first payment from Student Finance. How am I going to budget for this? Things like that. You can also update your personal details at any time. So it doesn't just have to be once a year when the application opens again. If anything changes, you can contact Student Finance at any time through the website, and you can update your details. You can reset passwords and kind of apply for finance as a new or continuing student as well. So it's a really fantastic resource to tap into as and when you need to kind of find some information about your loans and what you're entitled to. So I've kind of touched on it. So applications open in March, like we said. They can be made until 9 months after starting your course. You don't have to have a firm offer to apply, which is really great. It's all done online. So students and your parents and carers will both need to create a login. You'll both need to create an individual password. So you need to make sure that you're kind of both available and you can sit down and get this information on the system together to make sure you're getting your full entitlement before you head off to university. So you need to kind of create that Student Finance account, keep your details super safe. Like I said, you'll have to reapply, so don't forget that password because it's a bit of a faff to reset a password. You need to fill in and submit that application. So you'll need proof of identity. Your parents and carers will be asked for that NI number. And then you need to submit any evidence that you're asked for. So your statement of entitlement will be sent to you and you will have to reapply every year. So this is just re-establishing everything I said on that last page, just to reassure you that's the process, that's how it works. So once you've applied, you'll get an email within 24 hours with a link to submit all of your details. So this is once everything's open, the applications are open and ready to go. You can literally check this every day, but from the government website, it's saying that it's around mid-March that applications will open for this year. So you've got to create that account, use your own account. You can't use the same account as your parent or carer, or if you are the parent or carer, you can't use the same account as your child. So you both definitely have to have your independent logins. They might ask you to send or mail that evidence of your household income. It's not out of the ordinary. So if you are asked to do this, don't be afraid. Just be prepared. And you can submit an estimate of your financial details for the current tax year if you think your household income will be at least 15% lower than the previous tax year. So when you're updating your Student Finance every year, you can kind of preempt these things and get that information sent to them. And like I said, you have to do it every year just to make sure you're getting the absolute most you can out of your Student Finance loans and your kind of things that you're entitled to. So in terms of the grand scale of things, I hope I've kind of touched on the core elements of Student Finance and what you need to know and how you need to know it and how to do it. So to find out more about all things student finance and also all things university and all the processes that go on behind the scenes before you come, once you're there, once you're with us, and potentially at the University of Suffolk, if that may be. There's lots of different sites that you can go onto to find out lots of information. So on here, these are kind of general chat sites. For more student finance information, you can obviously use the government website, but there is also Black Bullion, which has some really great budgeting tips and kind of tricks that students can use to make the most of their money whilst they're at university as well. So we've got Unifrog on there, Unibuddy and Uni Taster Days. So these are all chats where you can kind of have discussions with people in similar situations to yourself. So you might be a parent or carer sending your child off to university. You might be a student yourself about to head off. So there's lots of different ways to get in contact and kind of share that information and share those queries and find the answers that you're looking for. On our university website, you'll be able to see lots of chat functions and ways to get in touch with us. So you can also have those discussions directly with university staff members who will be able to give you the best advice on kind of funding and finance and how it all works in relation to university. So I'm going to open it up to questions. We have a few in our chat box. So if anyone does have any other questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments now. We'll try and answer them. If not, thank you very much. You're more than welcome to pop off if you don't want to hear any answers to any other questions that we have. But I'm going to kind of read these out and see if I can answer them for you now. So we've got one from Gemma. I'm a mature student. Does the loan get written off in death? Okay, so as I said in the slides, your student loans are written off after 40 years if you haven't repaid them in full. So obviously, in the case of death, I believe they would be written off. So no one else would be indebted to pay off your loans in that case. So yes, they would be written off. There you go. Thank you. And then someone else has written, Izzy, do you have to pay for Unibuddy? No, so Unibuddy is a free kind of web function that we have. We're a partner of it at the University of Suffolk. So Unibuddy has lots of different functions. You can chat to students and chat to staff, which is super cool. So if you have any questions, it can actually link you up directly with staff related to the degree course that you're looking to study or to students that are on the course that you are looking to study as well. So if you just go onto our website, go onto the course web page that you're interested in, a little chat function will pop up, and then we will be able to kind of get you in touch with that student or member of staff, and you can have a conversation on the Unibuddy platform, which is really fantastic. So next question, how much does the accommodation cost a week at the University of Suffolk? So our main accommodation is Athena Hall. So the weekly costs and the costs of Athena Hall overall are dictated by Athena Hall. So it's a partnership that we have. We don't own this student accommodation. We have it in partnership with another company. So it's all on the website. So if you go onto the University of Suffolk website and you search Athena Hall, it will redirect you to their personal website, and you'll be able to see all of the costings and pricings for all of the different rooms, the studio flats, things like that. And you'll be able to see the weekly kind of estimates on there as well. So from Ebony, do you have to put both parents' incomes or just the parent you are living with, as I will be staying at home and travelling to uni? So household income will be the house that you are residing in, and it will be potentially both parents' income if you are in between those houses. But if you take a look on the Student Finance website, you will be able to be kind of reassured on what that situation would be for your specific living situation as well. So Catherine, hopefully we've answered your question about accommodation at Suffolk. So just pop onto the website and you'll be able to find that information super easily. So the Shelby has put one in with the NHS fund and bursaries. Does this get paid to me or taken off my tuition fee? So the NHS Learning Support Fund is sent to you. So it's not taken off your tuition fee. So your tuition fee will remain the same, and you will be awarded an additional £5,000 per year to support any travel costs or anything you might incur with kind of working around an NHS supported degree. So, Gemma, would receiving a large amount of inheritance money affect my loan amount? That's a really great question. So I don't believe so, because it is household income based. So your maintenance loan is dependent on what your parents or carers earn, not on what's in your bank account. So I would say the answer for that one is no. Thank you, Juliet. I'm glad it's been really helpful for you today. So, Faye, will there be a copy of your presentation? Absolutely, yeah. If anyone would like a copy of the presentation, I will be making note in the chat of anyone that would like to request it, and we'll be able to get this sent over to you. We'll also potentially have this released on the website as well. So we will get this out to you, definitely. So Nina has put in a question as well. Can parents pay off the student loan early? So you can definitely pay off your student loans. You can choose to, like Faraz, potentially even pay your tuition fee as you go if you are able to. But you can absolutely arrange to make payments with Student Finance England as and when you are able to, and you can make these payments whenever. So you're definitely not having to wait. If you do have the ability to pay off these loans or these debts early, you can do so. So Will, I am over 25. How does this affect my loan? So it shouldn't affect your loan. If you are an undergraduate and this is your kind of first time going through the process and it's your first undergraduate degree, being over 25 will not affect you in applying for any student loans. We have we have quite a few mature students at the University of Suffolk that do an undergraduate degree as well, and they're just as entitled to their maintenance loans and obviously their tuition fee loans as any other student that would be entering directly from school or college. Okay, perfect. So that's all the questions. If anyone else does have any more questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat now. Thank you for everyone that said it's really useful and really helpful. I'm glad we've been able to kind of dispel some myths for you today. And I'm glad that we've had Faraz on to kind of discuss his point of view on finance and budgeting. So thank you so much for all attending. We'll stay on here until kind of 7:15, just in case anyone has any more questions, but if not, you're more than welcome to go. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope you all have a lovely evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Okay, Demi, great question. Do you have to meet criteria for the disabled students allowance? So that's a really great question. So if you literally go onto Google, search disabled students allowance, there will be a criteria set out. So you'll have to input some information basically to inform whether you would be eligible or not, but it's a super simple process. So if you just have a little Google, you'll be able to find this information really easily. Thank you, Catherine. We absolutely will send you a copy. A copy, sorry, not a coffee. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, so Will, I've got on here, do my parents' finances not affect my loan application? So that's not true. So it's very dependent. Your tuition fee loan will remain the same. So everyone's tuition fee loan would be for the kind of the generic amount to pay for your yearly course fees to attend university. It's your maintenance loan that is affected by your household income. So that will be your parents' or carers' income in the house that you reside in. So for your maintenance loan entitlement, your parents' finances will affect how much loan you'll be able to receive, alongside obviously where you attend university and whether that is in London or out of London. and if potentially you're living at home and commuting. So they're all the different caveats. But if you go onto the government website and look for the student finance calculator, you can input your parents' finances or your household income, as it's kind of titled, and then you'll be able to see how much your entitlement would be. Izzy will be able to get you a copy as well. That's absolutely fine. Gemma, would the household income include any savings I have from working, as I am currently working? So Gemma, that's very dependent on whether you yourself are kind of the sole earner in your household. So if you are a student, that wouldn't be included in your household income. If you were kind of one of the adults that is earning alongside potentially doing your degree, then it could be put into consideration for your household income. Thank you, Will. Thank you, guys. Okay, so it is 7:15. If anyone does have any more questions, please feel free to email us. So our email is schools@uos.ac.uk. So we'll be able to answer any more of your questions via that email address. So I'll say it again, schools@uos.ac.uk. But thank you everyone so much. We're going to finish the stream now, so have a lovely evening. Thank you to Faraz as well, and goodbye.